All right, we are back another week with all your coaches, all three. Good old Ben Lingle. We're going to start off with Ben Lingle's hitting leadoff, followed
Heyo.
in the two-hole by Will Shively.
Hello.
And then me, Gary Deagle. And I'm excited today we have an awesome guest, one of our clients at Coastal Strength and Fitness. Her name is Lindsey Oro. You want to say hi, Lindsey?
Hi, guys.
And Lindsey also, so this is going to be like a dual episode. We're going to talk about her story a little bit, just with fitness and how it's worked for her in her life so far. And then also, Lindsey is a sports psychology consultant, so she's very well versed in change psychology that kind of goes into that and the mindset you want to have. And obviously, the way athletes approach their sport is also similar to changing your body and fitness and all that. So we're going to dive into some concepts and strategies with that as well. Sound like a plan, Lindsey?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So what we'll do, we'll just dive in. I'll let you want to talk about, so I know you're from New York originally and you went to school there. So you want to kind of take it from there and kind of how you got to know us and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up playing soccer my whole life. I've played since I was 5. Was lucky enough to play all through college. I went to Mount St. Mary College in New York, tiny little D3 school in Newburgh. And after I stopped playing soccer in college, I was just kind of unsure of what I wanted to do next. I knew what I wanted to do, like, school-wise and professionally, but as far as working out, like, once soccer season was over, I think I took a solid month off because I was just kind of burnt out and needed a break, and then wasn't able to get into anything really stable after that. I would decide I was going to start doing like insanity workouts again and would maybe do like 2 weeks worth of that, and then I would get bored and then I wouldn't do anything for a month and a half. And then I would decide, like, okay, I really need to start working out again. So I would go to the gym and jump on a treadmill and go for a really long, boring run. So that was kind of my workout routine all through grad school. Was just very inconsistent. I really wasn't doing any kind of like strength training. It was mostly just cardio. And then after I graduated grad school, I got a job down here in Virginia. And before I moved, I started researching different gyms in the area because I knew I wanted something where I could meet people, but I also wanted something that was going to make me feel like an athlete again, because that was something that I was really missing. So I didn't want to join like a Planet Fitness or One Life where I knew I would just jump on a treadmill and go for a run and then be like, okay, I ran a mile and go home. So through a solid Google search, I found Coastal. So I think I joined about 2 months after I moved down here. And I remember my first workout was a Tuesday cardio day, and it was like such a rude awakening for how out of shape I really was. Because I was like, oh, I'm an athlete, I'm a soccer player, like, I got this. And no, I did not have it. I was exhausted and dripping sweat by the end of it. But it was exactly what I was looking for. It was a group setting. It was having personal trainers who were there to like tell you good form and modify exercises for you. Because really what I was looking for was like kind of a CrossFit feel, but I have absolutely no interest in doing CrossFit. Like, Olympic lifting is just not for me. So Coastal was really the perfect thing that I was looking for. So I've been a member for about 2 years now, and I constantly surprise myself with how much progress I've actually made, and like I can actually lift some things, which is always a surprise.
Yep.
Which you guys always remind me to, like, hey, go heavier. You can lift that more than you think you can. So I think since I've started, I would say, I don't weigh myself ever, but I would guess I've lost around 15 pounds. Definitely inches off my waist, back, everything. But also, like, this is the strongest I've ever been. Because in the past, as a soccer player, I was just, like, in cardio shape and soccer shape, not really strong, but definitely now I see a lot of improvements in my strength. So that's where I'm at now.
For sure, yeah. There's been, because I remember when you first started, you've gotten crazy strong. I think part of that too, like you and Lauren, there's always that little competition.
Yeah. Oh,
Which
I miss
was
her.
great though. Like, yeah, I mean, we miss her too. But it was good, like having somebody, like not just being in the group setting, but like you had somebody kind of a little more personal to push you, to where you guys would always kind of not one up each other, but like if Lauren's gonna go heavier, and because like you have the ability and you move well, like you can go up too, you know. So there's always that little push, which I think is great to have, whether you're in a group or you just have like a training partner. So I think that's a big help. But you also trained for a sprint triathlon, correct? It was a sprint?
I did, yep, a sprint.
So how was that? Like how, I know like we've talked about it, you know, plenty, but just letting people know, how do you feel, did you feel prepared for that when you did it? Do you think you could have done that, you know, years ago straight out of college, or how'd it go?
Oh, absolutely not. I could not have done that straight after college. I felt so prepared going into it, and that was very intentional. So when I decided I was going to do the sprint triathlon, it was something I had never done before, but I viewed it as like kind of a new challenge, and it would be a cool accomplishment. And just from my background in sports psych and everything, I know that preparation fuels confidence. So I knew that the more prepared I was and the better I trained leading up to it, the more confident I would feel going into it. So really all I did, the triathlon was August 26th. I started training the first week of June. So I think probably mid-May, I took the time, sat down, and wrote out my training plan. And I had 3 calendars in front of me. I had a June, July, and August, and I would fill in every single day what my workout was going to be. So if Mondays and Wednesdays were swim, Monday was like an endurance swim, and then Wednesday would be an interval swim. And then if Tuesdays and Thursdays were the bike, Tuesdays would be like an interval bike, and Thursdays would be my long bike ride, and then Fridays were my run. So I was really intentional about how I planned it out in the beginning, because I knew if I started in the beginning of June and it was just like, okay, first triathlon workout, what am I going to do today? There was no chance I was going to feel prepared enough. So I really, really planned, and I had to make adjustments along the way to that plan, and I knew that was going to happen. So I was traveling for work for basically the whole month of July, and I was at Fort Knox in Kentucky for 2 weeks, and so that was a little kink in the plan, because I knew I couldn't bring my bike with me to Kentucky. So my backup plan was, okay, that doesn't mean I'm not going to bike for 2 weeks. What I'm going to do is find a spin class, and I'll use the spin bikes in the gym. And luckily my work schedule when I was there was flexible enough that I could still get my workouts in. And I had a girl with me, my friend Marielle, who has done multiple sprint triathlons, was also at Fort Knox with me. So I was picking her brain constantly of like how she's trained and what she's done, and tips for like the transitions and tips for your bike. And she would come with me to the pool to do pool workouts. So that really helped. But a big part of that was just being flexible with my workouts, and knowing that that was okay. And if there was a day where the weather was terrible and I couldn't go out for a run, that it wasn't the end of the world, and I would just pick it back up where I left off. And so my training went really well over the summer, and I went in feeling super prepared. And I think a lot of that was just because of planning.
Yeah, no, that's rad. Another question, because I remember we kind of went over it a little bit. Like, I guess, you know, like really all the coaches and you know, we've talked about it. How did you adjust like your strength training and like your days at the gym to account for your training? Like, you stopped all of your conditioning at the gym pretty much, and focused more on the triathlon, correct?
Yeah, and that was a thing I knew I had to consider too in the beginning. So I think when I was writing my plan, I talked to all of you and was like, hey, what's my best course of action? Like, I don't want to stop strength training. Obviously, I don't want to stop coming to Coastal for 3 months, and strength training is still going to be really important when you're training for a triathlon. And so we came up with the triathlon training needed to be the main focus.
Yep.
But then I ended up doing 2 days a week at Coastal. So I would do the upper body and lower body day. Took off Tuesdays completely because I was doing enough cardio as it was.
Yep.
And then Fridays, we just decided was going to be like my easy run day, that I didn't need to add in any additional strength training. So I was doing my triathlon workouts 5 days a week, and those were usually during my lunch break at work. And then Mondays and Wednesdays, I would come to Coastal after work and do my strength workout. And it ended up working out really well. And especially the week leading up to the triathlon, you guys were so helpful, because I think we were in whatever week of the phase we were in, it was like, we're trying to go heavy, and you guys were like, don't go heavy. Just do like some light stuff. It was almost like a deload week for me, because we didn't want me to be, sore and burned out come Saturday when it was time for the triathlon.
That week before, you really want to be like just like in recovery mode, because you're not going to adapt really much more in that week. So that's why we always do that if somebody has something coming up. Like you might feel like you're getting some work done, but you're not really doing a whole lot towards your performance. But yeah, you handled it perfectly, and I think a lot of people run into, for one, not planning like you did. Like, you planned out so well, which is why, you finished, you did well, you didn't get hurt, nothing adverse really happened, because of how well you planned out and how well you factored in recovery. You cut down your time with us. I think sometimes people try to just stack too much on top of what they're already doing. I think that the typical person may be doing their 3 or 4 days at Coastal, and then they would be like, all right, well, I'm going to train 5 or 6 days on top of that for this triathlon. And then they just kind of crumble and fall apart. They hurt a knee. And so I think it's a good lesson that you don't need to be busting your ass doing 2-a-days when you're training for something like that.
Yeah, no, I would have been completely burnt out if I was trying to do Coastal 4 times a week while also training for the triathlon. That would have just been bad news.
And a good, you're in your 20s, so if you're in your 20s and you felt like you're going to burn out, if you're in your 40s or 50s and you're trying to do that, your recovery is going to be even slower than a 20-year-old. So, for people listening, just keep that in mind. You don't have to bust your ass every single day, 7 days a week when you're training for something, or just working out in general. You have to recover.
Yeah, it's as simple as remembering it's the bucket analogy, where your bucket's a certain size, so there's always going to be a give and take, and you have to factor recovery in, or that bucket's going to overflow if you're just piling workout after workout after workout into it. So, and you mentioned a lot of talk about planning, which gets me excited, because that's my biggest pet peeve is, and again, a first step for a lot of people is, going to a One Life or a Planet Fitness and just doing whatever. You got to do something, so that's a good first step. But then a little after that, it just bugs me how people have no plan when they work out, and they just go do random stuff all the time, no thought put into it, and this is your body we're talking about. So that that's one reason I love Coastal, and I've always loved being a trainer, is because you can provide a plan for people, which most people, I would say everyone, will benefit from, as opposed to just randomly kind of just doing whatever,
Just winging it.
Yeah. So Lindsey, what would you say, especially looking over the last couple years, what are the key or most important habits maybe you've noticed you've established that was different from, Lindsey, who was randomly doing, P90X workouts, to then, getting into this routine and getting into this place where you were confident to do a triathlon? And what are those key habits that you've established?
Well, this Lindsey food preps for the first time ever. College and grad school Lindsey, never, ever, ever. And I really only learned how to cook when I moved down here to Virginia. So in grad school, it wasn't uncommon for me to just have eggs and salsa for dinner because I was lazy and didn't feel like cooking.
There's nothing wrong with eggs and salsa, but
you can get a little more creative and have a little bit more. So my viewpoint on nutrition has definitely done like a complete 180. And a lot of that came from, I think it might have been back in like February or March when we did the first accountability challenge, and you were on your teams, and it was like a new habit every week. And the first habit was like, okay, focus on having protein and fruit for breakfast. And that was just like something I had never thought of. And I was like, oh, that's actually doable and that's smart. And so from there, it was just tweaking every meal to where now, like for lunch, my typical lunch is like turkey meatballs, a sweet potato, and some veggies. And dinner is usually up in the air, but it's not eggs and salsa. It's usually like an actual meal. So I would say the nutrition piece has been huge. And the other part is having something to train for and just kind of having a goal in mind. So for me over the summer, that was a triathlon, but now that the triathlon's over, what's the next thing I can work towards? Is that like a deadlift PR? Is that getting a chin up? Is that being able to do like 10 perfect push-ups instead of just kind of coasting along and, you know, coming to workouts? And obviously we always get something out of the coastal workouts, but if you have something that you're shooting for, I think it makes you more intentional and more deliberate in what you're doing and more consistent in how many days you're showing up to the gym if you're shooting for a certain PR or something like that, because you know the more days you put in at the gym, the closer you're going to get. So I would say definitely nutrition and definitely just setting little goals along the way has really helped.
Yeah, that's awesome you mentioned that. I think that's one thing we don't harp on enough, or really anyone talks about enough, is cooking, right? Like it's always overlooked. You know, like a lot of times someone will join a gym or get a trainer and they'll say, here's your meal plan. But for a lot of people, most healthy meal plans like involve like you need to cook your own food, right? And a lot of people have never done that before, don't know, you know? So really like breaking it down into, hey, learning to cook, that's like a habit that most people like that needs to be established, and most people might not even do, you know. So it's definitely it seems so like arbitrary, but it's actually really key.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like if they haven't cooked, because like I was lucky I grew up being taught how to cook, but a lot of people just, for one, it's really intimidating. Like, oh, I don't know how to do this, I don't want to mess it up. You know, if I'm going to cook it and I mess it up, then I don't have anything to eat or whatever. When in reality, like cooking's pretty simple, but it's just taking that first step and trying. It's just like working out. Like you have to try it and you got to be kind of bad at it in order to get better, you know? But this is just making me think maybe we need to do a cooking show, podcast/cooking show.
And actually with that, with the thought of cooking and like you said, Will, like how you're going to mess up, Lindsey, do you want to kind of roll that into some psychology stuff and how, you know, because then cooking is just like learning anything, learning guitar, learning to be, you know, having a fit life. But what happens is once people mess up once, they give up or quit, right? Like we kind of forget how to learn. What would you say are some key kind of strategies for adults, you know, kind of like learning new things and like not getting frustrated in the psychology that we face with that?
Yeah, so really great topic that rolls into kind of an underlying concept of sports psychology, which is this concept of mindset. And so there's a really great book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, and she talks about how people tend to fall into one of two mindsets. There's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And so in a fixed mindset, this is where people think that their basic qualities like your intelligence, your personality, your athletic ability are all unchangeable, and this is the person who is like, talent is going to get me there alone. And so talent is what creates success. I can't change it. I have as much talent as I have. In a growth mindset, people think that their basic qualities, so your intelligence, athletic ability, all that, can be developed and can be improved through effort, through hard work, through deliberate practice. And a lot of her research came out of studying kids in schools. So it was the kids who were praised for like, oh, you're really smart versus the kids who were praised for, oh, you studied really hard. And so sometimes it's hard to recognize when we fall into one of those two mindsets. But if someone has that belief of like, I'll never be good at this, I'm just like, I'm not a chef, I'm not a good cook, they're tending to fall more towards that fixed mindset. And that has some implications as far as how far they'll go in that one area. So people who fall into a fixed mindset, like failure equals death, like they don't want to fail because it's like a blow to their self-identity. They give up really easily in the face of setbacks. So believing that like a setback means that you're not talented enough, so let's just quit. And they don't see effort as worth it, because if I'm really good at something, I shouldn't have to try this hard. And so people in a fixed mindset might see success initially, but they tend to plateau and don't reach their full potential. And so where this growth mindset comes in of like constantly learning and constantly improving, if you think that basic qualities can be developed through effort and hard work, it creates this like love of learning. You see effort as like, if I try hard enough, I can get this. And it causes you to embrace challenges. So something that's a little bit tough that you're not really sure if you can do isn't something to be feared. It's something to embrace and let's do it and let's see how I do. And there's a couple different ways that people can kind of identify like where you're falling on this fixed growth spectrum. And once you do, how can you change your language and change your thoughts in order to cultivate more of that growth mindset? So if someone is like, you know, I'm not a good cook, I don't have any cooking ability, I'm never going to be good at this.
If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late, so having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's one scoop, mixed in water, once a day, and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/provengrit. That's drinkag1.com/provengrit. Check it out. If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late, so having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's one scoop, mixed in water, once a day, and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/provengrit. That's drinkag1.com/provengrit. Check it out.
One thing Carol Dweck says in her book is adding yet to the end of that sentence. So I'm not a good cook yet. And so that opens the door for, okay, but how can I get better? And so if you can adopt that kind of mindset of like, I can get better at this, but what is it going to take to get better? Now you're being more open to things that are actually going to develop your skills. So like taking a cooking class, trying a recipe, one recipe every week, talking to other people to see how they started out when they first started learning how to cook. What did they do? What can I learn from them? And people in a growth mindset tend to see a little bit greater level of success and just more optimal performance overall. So I think that's a really important concept for people to understand at kind of baseline, and then having enough self-awareness to recognize if you are falling into that more fixed mindset, how can you get yourself out and try to shift yourself more towards this growth, this mindset of self-improvement, of love of learning, and mindset of resilience.
Damn, that was a bomb. I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to this whole episode. So
I know.
So as you're going over all of this, like I'm sure like plenty of people out there, and I don't think anybody is just one or the other. I'm sure there are some things where we find ourselves kind of just like talking down to ourselves or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like I realized as I was growing up, I was always in a fixed mindset. And of course you're a kid, like you kind of don't, it's not really your fault. But like I was always pretty smart naturally. So I always got good grades no matter what I did. And I was always pretty athletic, so I never really had to try growing up. And so like realizing when I hit college and had to learn how to study for the first time, how rude of an awakening that was for me. And I was like, well, I'm already smart. Like, why do I have to do this? Like, why do I need to study?
Mm-hmm.
And then like I really struggled with that. And same thing with like my athletic ability and working out. Like, just having to work for it was difficult to kind of get into and wrap my head around. But and I'm sure like there are plenty of people out there that have been through the same thing or still go through the same thing. But it was a little bit it was a little work to kind of fix that and right that ship. But I like the language change a lot. Like I think that's a really good way to go. So you said adding yet. What are some other things that can help people after they've identified like, all right, well maybe I'm kind of in a fixed mindset. I don't want to be here anymore. Like what are a few more steps or maybe one more step they could take to maybe helping them get a little bit more on that path?
I would say probably the most effective one would be asking for feedback. So feedback, whether it's from like a teacher, a coach, your peers at the gym, plays such a huge role for us that I think sometimes we don't really realize. But not only asking for feedback, but then what are you going to do with it? So people who tend to fall more towards fixed, they just ignore feedback, whether it's good or bad, whether it's constructive or not. Whereas people in a growth take that feedback, learn from it, and kind of pick out the pieces that they might need. And so I think just taking that initial step of asking someone of like, hey, is there something else I can be doing? Am I doing this right? What did you think about how I did this? Opens up that conversation between you and the other person, and it also opens your mind a little bit to, oh, there are some more things I could be doing to get better. And a lot of what Carol Dweck talks about in her book is like how we praise people. So for any parents out there, and especially coaches, praising the like effort and the hard work versus the talent. So that there's a difference between telling someone, hey, you're a really great player versus, hey, I know you studied those plays really hard all last week and you took the time to execute. So it's kind of it works both ways in like how parents and coaches can influence and start cultivating that growth mindset, but also the individual, if you notice that you're fixed, changing the language, but also asking for feedback and asking for criticism, which is not always the easiest thing to do, but in the long run, super beneficial.
Yeah, I think as a coach, one of the most important things I know I've learned is how important it is to highlight people's, victories or successes, because naturally people are going to look at the negatives, especially if they're coming from a fixed mindset. So a good example, I was messaging with a client, and they were bummed because they missed their workout because some stuff got in the way. But then they had mentioned how, they went home and had their dinner, which was a prepared meal. And so, I wanted to make sure to highlight, look, like, A, you prepared your meal. 2, you actually ate it. You didn't eat something else because you were stressed. Like, those are 2 huge victories. And, just people, like Will kind of said, like, either making sure to highlight their own victories themselves, or, like you said, having a coach or a teacher or a parent or friend know what you're doing and how you're trying to change, and to point, hopefully that person will also point out those victories so that you can kind of snowball some success,
Mm-hmm.
But that was one thing when I was a young trainer. I would always, you get frustrated with people when they don't do things right away. And just like for me now, like, that's why I love this psychology stuff. I would say it's more important than the food and the sets and the reps, because ultimately most people, like, that's what holds them back is this fixed mindset, because ultimately they just can't change with it.
Lindsey, how much of the, I guess, the outcome, the success, hinges on that mindset, hinges on, like, not your natural talent, your natural ability, but just the pure effort? Was there any type of, like, 80% comes from it or anything in that book?
Not that I know of, but from what we know about, like, outcome versus process, falling more towards that growth mindset causes you to be more process focused as opposed to outcome focused. And just what we know from the research is that focusing on the process, you're going to see more success than focusing on the outcome. But I don't know if there's actually any statistics like that, at least not ones that I'm aware of. But
it reminds me a little bit of the nature versus nurture thing, and, like, is somebody destined to be an NFL player, or were they worked appropriately, had the right mindset, and enjoyed the process, and how much of it was genetics and how much of it was a correct mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And without being able to really put those thoughts together, I just asked
Yeah, I
that
think
question.
it's like a sliding scale. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like some people are going to be, like, the most genetically superior human beings in terms of physicality,
Right.
and they're, like, going to naturally fall into something like that. But there's dudes who work their ass off to get to the NFL that, weren't genetically gifted. So I think it's just like a big scale of, going either way. But
And like they say at the elite levels, it's always like they both meet, right? Like amazing talent meets amazing hard work. Kind of like Michael Phelps, for example. Like, obviously he worked super hard, but he also, I've read somewhere, had like webbed feet and like really long limbs, which is ideal for swimming and a short tour, so it's like, you could take someone else who worked just as hard or harder as Michael Phelps, but didn't win 7, world records in 14 gold medals or whatever. So that's kind of where, you draw a line with it.
I like seeing it play out in sport, almost like
Rudy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Rudy. Everyone loves a good
It's
Rudy
always
story,
a
man.
kicker too, like where they're just like they walked on, they played, they played soccer, they played rugby, and then there they are in the NFL because they switched, they decided to, and those people have the mindset you were just talking about, Lindsey, like that actual growth mindset, because they weren't there, they weren't born to kick a football, they were, I guess, born to kick a soccer ball or whatever, and so they made that switch. They had to embrace a new process and embrace that type of growth. But it's and also flip side, a little bit of I wonder, the high injury rates for some of the people, you're a rookie quarterback, you go to the NFL and everything seems to break down. Those are the people that I would imagine, this is a judgment call, but that I would imagine would fall into the fixed mindset because, just hands down, their joints, ligaments aren't that strong. Maybe they didn't put in the work. Maybe they skipped the extra practice because they would rely on natural talent. Again, I'm reaching a little, but maybe just adding a little bit of a picture to the awesome explanation of that mindset.
Could be.
Yeah, I was going to say that exact same thing. That's where, like, too much talent can be a hindrance. Like, you look at someone like Tom Brady, and obviously he was naturally tall, which helped, but he doesn't have amazing talent or arm strength. But so he probably had to work harder, whereas you can get, an RG3 who has it all and maybe
Yeah.
doesn't have to work
Great
on
example.
doesn't have to work on the craft as much, and then then
those knees.
yeah,
Gets to
exactly.
the NFL, like
he
can't
skipped
get away with
he
some
skipped
stuff.
those knee workouts, man.
I just have to wonder. Yeah, did he have a little bit more of a fixed mindset?
Yeah, I mean, could be. I'm gonna direct this back to nutrition. That was a good tangent, but the outcome versus process, like that's something we see all the time. You know, like people who enjoy the process and they really get into it and aren't so focused on I have to lose 60 pounds or like they keep losing weight and they're never satisfied. That's like you're just focused on the outcome, which will never actually be there. There's no end of the rainbow. But people are focused on the process, like they enjoy it. They understand that it's like, hey, this is a journey, and they usually get better results. People that are very, very much process driven because they have the basics. They have a good base to get them far. But somebody who's like, just focused on the outcome, they're a little more prone to get frustrated with themselves because, I'm not there yet, So, we definitely see that. And so I think having that mindset shift from like a fixed to a growth can help like in every regard, but especially in terms of like getting fit and losing weight. But it's just hard to get there. It's, it's uncomfortable to get to that point if you're trying to switch your mindset with the way you do things.
Oh yeah, it's really hard to switch that mindset, especially if it's been your mindset for 20, 30, 40 years. You're not going to change it overnight.
Yep.
And I think a great strategy for that, let me know what you think of this, Lindsey, is so obviously, like you mentioned, it's great to have goals, and we're talking about outcomes and the versus process. So I think a great way to kind of meet in the middle is setting behavior goals. So you have your outcome goal, I want to lose 20 pounds or whatever it is. I want to run a triathlon. But that's not really helping anything. Now it's good. It's like your guiding light, guiding star. But then you want to set some behavior goals that can help you actually achieve that outcome, and those are what you focus on, right? So if it's lose 20 pounds, then you need to set a behavior goal of I'm going to cook my meals once a week, for the week ahead. I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week. I'm going to, get to bed by 9 so I can sleep 8 hours. And then those behavior goals really like get you to dive into the process.
Oh yeah, so spot on. And honestly, Gary, your Facebook post from like 2 or 3 days ago where you talked about like outcome versus behavior, and I knew I was going to be on the podcast. I was like, man, this guy is stealing all my goal setting thunder. Like, but that's so unbelievably true. And I think that's a lot of time where like the goal setting process falls apart for people is I have this goal of I want to lose 20 pounds, but they don't follow it up with, and how am I going to do that? And that's the how is your behaviors, and those are much more sustainable over time. And by focusing on those, maybe if you didn't lose a pound this week, you're not going to freak out and the train isn't going to be derailed. So absolutely, behavior goals are huge and very effective in terms of reaching your long-term goals.
What now, especially working with soldiers and athletes like you do, is so obviously, when we're working with people who want to just change fitness-wise, this is a huge roadblock we run into. Is this a common thing you run into with like soldiers and athletes as well? Is that fixation
absolutely.
on outcome? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I've seen it most with athletes, specifically teams. So if you think about teams, and some of this stems from the coach, but if you think about teams who are saying like, our goal is to go undefeated this season, that's a huge, first of all, really unlikely, because how many teams really go undefeated, depending on the sport. And does that mean like if you go into your first game of the season and you lose, like now the whole season's for nothing and we should just, forfeit the rest of our games? So it's great to have an outcome goal of success, of like winning a championship. I don't really like the undefeated goal, but if that's what they want their goal to be, that's fine. But it's more focusing on what's something I can do to get us there. So then for each player, breaking down like, what do I need to do? What's my role on this team in order to help us get maybe a little bit closer to a championship? So does that mean I need to put in, extra footwork drills 3 times a week. I need to make sure that my nutrition is like where it needs to be. I need to get into the gym to do like my injury rehab. So just being able to break it down into the how. But I think a lot of times, especially in sports, people get really fixated on the outcome. And that just puts unnecessary pressure and draws your focus away from where it needs to be and draws your focus away from what's going to benefit you most in the long run. So I've definitely seen that with sports teams.
Nice. So what I'm taking away from you then, what I learned from the Lindsey Oro awesome coaching is, so say someone wants to change, they want to start getting fit for life, a great approach is A, set your outcome goal, then, and don't make it too outlandish, you know, like, oh, I'm going to lose weight nonstop no matter what, 80 pounds in six weeks. Like, that's not good. But maybe, hey, I'm going to lose this weight, but then no specific timetable. That'd be a realistic outcome goal, right?
Yeah.
And then set your behavior goals to focus on the process. So the little things, like how you, when you did your triathlon, you planned, once you decided that was your goal, then you really dove into your plan, right? Mm-hmm. Then the other big kicker is noticing your thoughts and your mindset, right? So catching when you maybe fail. Hey, maybe you start your plan and you gain 2 pounds, like, and you have that urge to quit, but then you realize, hey, like that's a fixed mindset. I need to be growth, and really throughout the process, you just want to be real in tune with your thoughts and that fixed versus growth mindset. And if you stay along that kind of that guidepost, you will be more likely to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something people underestimate a lot is just how much power your thoughts have over you. And that's really the foundation of sports psychology, is your thoughts do influence your performance. So if you notice that your thoughts aren't working for you, your mindset isn't working for you, how can you then start making steps to change it so that it is working for you? And I think that's something that gets really underestimated across the board, whether it's sports, whether it's the Army, whether it's losing weight. But your thoughts do matter.
Yeah, there's a lot of science coming out too. I was actually talking to a guy at the gym the other day with basically your thoughts in regards to like fat loss and muscle growth. So like literally if you're telling yourself like I cannot do this, it literally physically will affect, that from actually happening based on like, your neurons and atoms and all that stuff in your body. They're just kind of diving into that, learning more and more.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Movement foundation says that you have to want to perform a movement before, like your limbic system and your brain has to go off, and desire has to be, I want to reach for that cup before any muscles will fire or any type of coordination will happen. So that is, if you're literally saying like, well, I'm supposed to reach for that cup, but I don't think I can, or whatever, how is your brain going to coordinate your muscles to actually do it? That's cool. Yeah. I don't know.
So it's a real central nervous system driven type thing, right?
Literally emotional. Like, movement is completely emotional. It's a behavior. It's a thing. So, like any type of weightlifting, or just getting better at your sport, like trying to swing a baseball bat at full speed, for instance, like it really, just from my experience, the limbic system will shut that down completely. Yeah. Meaning, I don't want to be here. I can't do this. I'm thinking about something else. Yeah, that's. Yeah.
It's as simple as you can test it for yourself with happiness, right? Like you can wake up in the morning and make your first thought be like, man, today's gonna be a great day. I'm super happy. And like you're more likely will be happy that day versus you wake up, negative thought, I'm miserable. And like you probably will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
it sounds so like frou-frou and silly, but that it's hard to grasp, but it's a real thing. So I think, now I know for speaking for myself, I get really excited, Lindsey, when you say A words, because your New York comes out. You notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that.
Like it's not super strong regular, but now we've been talking, I literally have a list here of all the words where you sound New Yorkish. I was making it as we went. Like all of you. Can you say all of you again?
All of you.
There it is. Can you say adding?
Adding? Oh, man. I didn't even notice that one. You know, I think my accent's fading now that I lived in Virginia. It's good to know that is clearly not the case, and it is not fading.
You don't have this default Virginia accent
You're walking
yet,
on that line.
which I think sounds like nothing, but I probably sound like real country sometimes. I don't know.
I mean, few
It's
words.
real country because when
Yeah.
I moved out to California, like strangers, I'll say 4 words to them, and they're like, where are you from in the South? And I'm like, I don't sound Southern. Like,
Yeah, like, I
So-
feel like I sound like I have no accent really, but you know, I guess that's how everybody feels.
Yeah.
Ben's Michigan slips out still every once in a while.
Doesn't everybody talk through their nose? Like, I'd be
Let's-
the only one.
Ben, say y'all.
Y'all.
Okay. It used to be more nasally, right? Like, y'all.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean,
y'all.
you break
Y'all.
it apart, like, I'm going to be able to like enunciate it, but once I get going, then y'all starts coming out real.
How do you,
Right from the top.
Lindsey and Ben, how do y'all feel about the word y'all? Is that something you say
No.
in Michigan and New York?
Never. I say you guys.
Yeah.
If I need to address a group, like especially soldiers at work, I'll say you guys because I realized that if I tried to seriously say the word y'all, because I don't say all, so it would come out y'all and it would sound stupid.
Y'all.
So yeah, no, I stick with you guys.
You guys is like the proper. And, like, I think y'all is like a casual group.
You know what's funny? I live in the South, and like I don't think I ever say y'all. Like I feel really, I feel odd saying it. Like it, I don't know why. Like I used to say it when I was younger, but now like y'all doesn't sound right to me.
It flows. I jumped right in. Moving
Yeah,
here.
no.
Now I say
I was like,
that,
I'm
and then,
allowed
like,
to say
I
this?
might get going
Oh,
in a
cool.
crowd, and I'm just throwing y'alls out left and right, and not even know it.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
that could be it.
It's a great word when you think about it, especially nowadays,
it
being
takes
real
care of so
politically
much.
correct. Like, I would feel bad saying you guys to a group of girls and guys, right? Whereas you can say y'all,
bad about that.
and you're safe.
I mean, yeah, y'all wraps everybody into it. So, yeah, that is a safe word.
Yeah.
We need the motion to infiltrate y'all into the northern hemisphere of the
Yeah.
country.
I mean,
You
you
like
can
yell-
try. They're real
can yell
stubborn
that.
up there.
they're gonna yell at you.
Yeah, you're
That's
gonna
just-
get yelled at, that's for
like,
sure.
it's
I would
like
probably
takes some
cry.
Yelling. Yeah.
Like if I went to Chicago and just went around the street and just, hey y'all,
Y'all.
and they like said shut the hell up, I would
Just correct them. They're
Yeah.
saying, hey, you guys do this and that.
Oh.
It's y'all.
I would resort to a fixed mindset real quick.
Survival.
In my motion for y'all.
Oh, man.
Well, let's. I could go for another like 45 minutes, hour and a half on the
Yeah.
psychology stuff.
Yeah, we could.
But,
You know what? Like, how about just another episode?
Yeah.
There we go.
You
I
gotta
think,
come
I
back,
think that would be
Lindsay.
dope. Yeah,
Gotta
as we were
come
going, I
back.
was like, damn, we're not gonna be able to fit everything that we could probably talk about into one episode. Because I know, like, at the gym we usually geek out a little bit. I think all of us.
Oh
We
yeah.
get to talk to you sometimes, so it's kind of fun. So we'll have a host of other stuff to talk about when we have you on again,
Absolutely.
for sure.
I think it would be even more fun at the new gym. You know, if we can meet and do some podcasts there, and then some of it's face to face for you guys. That would
You
be a
know
lot
what?
of fun.
I think this actually might be the last podcast on my kitchen table.
Moving on up.
For anybody listening, actually, by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be we'll be about to move. Well, mostly moved into the new gym.
You better knock on wood.
Ooh,
There we
I'm
go.
knocking, baby.
Jinx it all.
Nah, it's going smooth for anybody listening. Anybody, they'll probably ask me in person, but for anybody who doesn't live here, the gym is coming together nicely. So.
Are you excited, Lindsay?
I'm so excited. I keep forgetting that it's happening.
We
It's like
have,
bittersweet too. So
We have 11 days before
Oh my god.
our so-called opening day.
the best part is going to be the turf. Like we'll have a full stretch, like I think about 30 yards and
30 yards, yeah.
a little bit wider. So we'll be able to do more things in line with that.
And not crash into
Yeah.
a merchandise shelf. So, yeah, it's gonna be dope.
All right, guys. Well, Lindsay, thank you for your time for doing this. I know we got a lot out of it, so I'm sure the listeners
yeah.
did as well.
I think that was super comprehensive. Let's get Ben's What do you got for us, Ben? What are you feeling today?
I'm going back and forth.
Has your emotion changed since like the podcast?
Oh, yeah, actually it has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was
Yep.
thinking more like, check out what the kids listen to these days because it pumps me up. But then I'm just like, oh, that's a song about vegetables. That's kind of fun.
What is
You
it
know
like
what,
from
I
the
think-
Barney?
I think-
Is it from the Barney soundtrack or something?
No. But I think we'll listen to what the kids are listening to because
what
when
do
you
you
are
got, man?
lifting, you need the right mindset.
What do you got?
You need the right song too. This is called "I Bet You" by Yellow Claw. Again, probably irrelevant as far as like their name. These people put together this mix and it's really good. You know what I mean? So but again, "I Bet You" is the name of it. Let me jump. It takes a little bit of time to get into it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's going.
Is this like trap music? What is this?
Yes,
Yeah,
there's a
what-
little bit of trap going on here, but it's as in like it's trap because it's slow. It's kind of like draggy, but at the same time, there's so much going on. If you were in a trap, they would make you shut this off.
That sounds real. Real industrial.
Yeah, you could like set mass down.
You could. Yeah. Who was it? Who was that?
That was Yellow Claw.
Yellow Claw.
Yellow Claw. I bet you, and that's like IBETCHU.
Bet you. One word.
One word.
I bet you.
I bet you.
What's your workout jams of choice, Lindsay?
I have to
If you
say
had to pick.
my number one pump up song that no matter where I hear it, when I hear it, I'm just like, I want to go play in a soccer game right now is "Till I Collapse" by Eminem. That was like my jam in college. Other than that, anything with just like a good beat. I really like Tuesday playlists when we get like a little Flow Rida in there.
That's good.
Every I think Flow Rida makes his music for group training.
I think he's doing a great job and he should keep doing it because I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yep. Nah, man. Those are good workout jams.
Eminem has a new CD coming out.
Oh, I can't wait. I hope it's
New
good.
album. I think it comes out the 15th next week. So that should be good. Yes, sir. Yep. I've been jamming out to a bunch of Eminem because he's been all over the place. I guess that's how you know his album's coming out. So they had like a special playlist on Spotify, all that good stuff. So it takes me back to high school, and probably takes Lindsay back to elementary school. Where you
Yeah, I'm
just jamming.
pretty sure Eminem was like a fan fave in like 6th grade. So
There we go.
Jamming at the skating rink.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been allowed to listen to it. I had to like sneak on the sly buy like the Outkast CD when I was in 6th grade.
Juvenile. My CD was
man.
Juvenile that I snuck bought in middle school.
Some Usher. Well, all right.
Yeah.
We'll take it out with that. We'll let everyone stew on what their high school and elementary school jams were, and then we'll get back to you next week. All right, guys. Signing off.
Later.
thanks, guys.